Today we're going to work on the Pythagorean Theorem and its converse. This is section 11.4. The Pythagorean Theorem is, if you have a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, meaning the two legs of the triangle, the right triangle, being a and b, if I square their lengths and add them together, that will be equal to the hypotenuse length squared. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. If it's a right triangle, this will always be true. Let's find the unknown length for our triangle, and our answer is going to be as a radical, please. We're going to start out with our equation. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. And in for a, we have 4, so that's 4 squared. B, we do not know what it is. And c is 9 squared. Do your order of operations. That gives us 16 plus b squared is equal to 81. We need to get b squared all by itself. So that means you're going to take 81 and subtract 16 from it. That gives us 65. And then we need the square root of both sides. So we need to find out just what b is. So we're going to take the square root of both sides, which gives us the square root of 65. And technically, that's a plus minus square root of 65. But because we're working with the length of a triangle, we know that we are only going to deal with the positive answer. So we're going to have the square root of 65. And 65 has no perfect square factors, so we can just leave it as square root of 65. And our label on this would be units. If we're not given whether it's centimeters or inches or anything, then we just say units. Find the lengths of the legs of the right triangle are the following. Find c. So we know that a is going to be 5, so we can put a, 5 squared, and b is 12, so b is 12 squared, equal to c squared. We actually have to find out what the hypotenuse is. This is pretty easy for us in that we can just go ahead and square each of the two numbers. 25 plus 144 equal to c squared. That gives us 169 equals c squared. And then, so we have to find c. We're going to take the square root of each side. And again, c is equal to a plus minus 13, but we only want the positive 13. So we'll have 13 units being our c. The length of the hypotenuse is going to be 13 units. A right triangle has one leg that is 1 foot longer than the other leg. And the hypotenuse is the square root of 13 feet. Find the unknown lengths. First thing you should probably do for yourself is draw yourself a triangle. Make it a right triangle. And we know that one of the legs is 1 foot longer than the other leg. If this leg is x, 1 foot longer is going to be x plus 1. And we're also told that the hypotenuse is the square root of 13. So you draw yourself a picture, and then you can start working with your a squared plus b squared equals c squared equation. Put in what you know, x squared plus x plus 1, quantity squared, equals the square root of 13 squared. Now, we have a binomial squared, and we remember that x plus 1 quantity squared becomes x squared plus these two times each other times 2 gives us 2x plus the last one squared, which is going to be 1 squared is 1, equals square root of 13 squared is just 13. At this point, gather your terms together and you'll have 2x squared plus 2x, and bring the 13 on over gives us minus 12 equals 0. This is a quadratic equation. We have many ways to solve it. Quadratic formula, completing the square, We have factoring, square roots if we only had an x squared term. So let's divide everybody by 2 and have x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. And in fact, I can factor this pretty easily. That will be x plus 3 and x minus 2 equals 0. I set each of my factors equal to 0. And I find out that x is going to be equal to a negative 3 and x is equal to a positive 2. Again, we get to throw away our negative number. One of my legs is x, and is 2 feet for x. The x plus 1 is going to be equal to 3 feet, so that I have both of my answers here. 2 feet and 3 feet are unknown lengths. We have a rectangular pool. It's 30 feet wide and 60 feet long. So again, draw yourself a picture. It's 30 feet wide and it's 60 feet long. And they want to know if you swim diagonally across the pool to the nearest foot, how far do you swim? So we're really trying to find the hypotenuse of our triangle. So we have 30 squared plus 60 squared, those are our 2 legs, equals x squared, equals our hypotenuse. Now 30 squared is 900, 60 squared is 3600, equal to x squared. When we add those together, we get 4500 equals x squared. And you can literally pick up your calculator, take the square root of 4500, and that gives me 67.08 equal to x, and that's a plus minus. But it wants it to the nearest foot, so I round that off and have just 67 feet. Again, I'm only taking the positive answer, and this one wanted to the nearest foot. So we have 67 feet you would have swam diagonally across that pool. The converse of the Pythagorean theorem states, if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then it's going to be a right triangle. So this is just the opposite of what we were assuming before. With the Pythagorean theorem, we said if it's a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now we're starting off knowing that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then we can say that the lengths that we have do make up a right triangle. So let's take a look at this one. We have our information up here, tell whether the triangle with the given side lengths is a right triangle. Okay, I have 7, 23, and 24. In my triangle, please note, the longest side is always going to be the hypotenuse in a right triangle. The longest side is always the hypotenuse. So I'll be able to take 7 squared plus 23 squared and set it up to be equal to 24 squared. If this is a true statement, then I know that I have a right triangle. Well, 7 squared is 49. 23 squared is equal to 529. And 24 squared is equal to 576. Now, 49 plus 529 is equal to 578. Is this equal to 576? Absolutely not. So then we come up here and we say, not a right triangle. Okay, this is not a right triangle. Why? Because a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared. If you had a true statement, then it would be a right triangle. Let's take a look at this one. We have 5, 12, and 13. Remember, our longest side is our hypotenuse. The longest side is always considered our hypotenuse. So we have 5 squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared. 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144, and 13 squared is 169. 25 plus 144 gives us 169. And that makes a true statement. So we can say, yes, this is a right triangle. Yes, these dimensions give us a right triangle. So if you get a true statement, it is a right triangle. A false statement, like our other one, is not. Our last piece of information here, we have a window that has the shape of a triangle with side lengths of 120 centimeters, 120 centimeters, and 180 centimeters. And they want to know, is the window a right triangle? Well, when you look at this window has two sides that are exactly the same size. They are both the legs. This 180 is going to be our hypotenuse. So let's take a look at that. That's 120 squared plus 120 squared equals 180 squared. Well, 120 squared is going to be equal to 14,400 plus 14,400. And 18 squared is going to be 32,400. Now, if we add together 14,400 plus 14,400, we get 28,800. Is that equal to 32,400? Absolutely not. That is not a true statement. So is this window a triangle? No, it's not a right triangle because a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared. We get 28,800, and that is not equal to 32,400. So showing me the work of how you came up with the answer of why it's not a right triangle is really the best explanation. Good luck on doing your Pythagorean theorem and its converse.